Welcome to the Massillon City Council meeting for Monday, April 3rd, 2023. We have in attendance with us the following city officials.
Safety Service Director Barbara Sylvester.
Present.
Assistant Law Director Edmund Mack.
Present.
Economic Development Director David Mary.
Present.
Is there anyone present from administration I might have missed? That's it, Madam President.
Thank you and welcome to everyone that's in attendance with us tonight. Under number 5 on the agenda is where the public can speak on any topic that does appear on tonight's agenda. And then again, under number 17 is where the public can speak on any topic that did not appear on tonight's agenda. I'd like to ask all of you, please, if you have your cell phone, to make sure it's on mute. Turn it off or set it to vibrate. Roll call.
Creamer.
Present.
Gray.
Here.
Harvey Smith.
Here.
Herb King.
Here.
Lewis. Lombardi.
Here.
Sloops.
Here.
Sneed.
Here.
Viola. Here. Roll call, 8 present.
Councilman Gray.
Thank you, Madam President. I'd like to make a motion that we excuse Councilman Lewis for this evening.
Second by Councilman Lombardi. Roll call.
Gray.
Yes.
Harvey Smith.
Yes.
Herb King.
Yes.
Lombardi.
Yes.
Sloops.
Yes.
Sneed.
Yes.
Viola.
Yes.
And Creamer.
Yes.
8 yes to excuse Councilman Lewis.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Councilman Lewis has been excused. Councilman Lombardi.
Thank you, President Eisner. Could you please stand and join me in the Lord's Prayer and the Pledge of Allegiance? Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, the power, and the glory, forever. Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Councilman Lombardi. Madam Clerk, are the minutes of the previous meeting transcribed and open for public viewing?
Yes, they are.
Are there any corrections or additions to be made?
No, there are not.
Then the minutes stand approved as written. We are on number 5 on the agenda, where anyone from the audience can come forward and speak on any topic that does appear on tonight's agenda. If you wish to do so, please state your name, address, topic you wish to discuss, and please limit your comments to 4 minutes or less.
Gail Dancy, 2014 Tennyson Avenue, Northeast Massillon, Ohio. And I saw something on the agenda. It has a funny name, and they applied for an inducement grant. And I did a little research on them, and there's a lot of questionable things about them. And what got my attention was that the questionable things, the best way I could say is disrespectful things about them. It got my attention that passed the administration. So I'm really unsure how they got past the administration for the administration to recommend to you to give them an inducement grant.
Thank you. Do you have paper back there?
There is. Should have been.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Sneed. Anyone else wishing to address council? Seeing none, we'll move into new miscellaneous business.
I have
You have none? Thank you. Could you speak into the mic?
none. For the record, I have none.
Thank you. Introduction of ordinances and resolutions. Ordinance number 29, 2023.
An ordinance adopting the recommendations of the Massillon Tax Incentive Review Committee, TIRC, with regard to the renewal and termination of Massillon's Enterprise Zone EZ projects and declaring an emergency.
Councilman Hurricane?
Thank you, Madam President. Mr. Bailey was in attendance last week at the work session and spoke to the TERP's recommendations to continue the 2 remaining city enterprise zone agreements. Are there any questions from anyone on council? Madam President, seeing no questions, I make a motion that we suspend the rule requiring 3 separate readings and bring ordinance number 29-2023 forward for vote tonight.
Second by Councilman Biola. Roll call for suspension.
Howard Smith,
Yes.
Kern King,
Yes.
Lombardi,
Yes.
Sluse,
Yes.
Snead,
Yes.
Viola, Creamer,
Yes.
and Gregg.
Yes.
8 yes for suspension.
And for passage.
Kern King,
Yes.
Lombardi,
Yes.
Sluse,
Yes.
Snead,
Yes.
Viola,
Yes.
Creamer,
Yes.
Gregg,
Yes.
and Harvick Smith.
Yes.
8 yes for passage.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Ordinance number 29, 2023 has passed. Ordinance number 30, 2023.
An ordinance to accept the dedication of road right-of-way and easements for Canyon Creek Estates Phase 3 subdivision, Massillon, Ohio.
Councilman Snead.
Thank you, President Eisnick. This is an ordinance to accept the dedication of the road right-of-way and easements for Canyon Creek. This is the expansion Phase 3 on the west side. I'd like to open it up now for anybody. We had a question as far as flooding in the last work session. Councilman Harvick Smith, did that get answered to your satisfaction?
It did. Basically, we have no responsibility, is what he said.
Okay. At this time, does any other member of council have any further questions? Ms. Harvick Smith?
Is this allotment going to have city water and sewer? And as far as like the rainwater drainage, where's that all going to go?
To be honest, I don't know. Could we call a member of administration who might be able to answer that tonight? Thank you, Mr. Neely.
Thank you, Mr. Mealy.
Mr. Chairman, Councilman Smith, everything in the city has to have an aqua water, and it's our sewer plant, so basically it's stormwater. We service the storm and sewer.
Okay, I just know as you get out there, a lot of people have septic systems and well.
Not in the city, not septic.
Okay.
Anyone else on council? Councilman Snead.
First reading?
Thank you. Ordinance number 30, 2023 has received first reading. Ordinance number 31, 2023.
An ordinance authorizing the Director of Public Service and Safety of the City of Massillon, Ohio, to advertise for and receive sealed bids and enter into a contract with the lowest and best bidder upon the approval of the Board of Control for the 2023 Street Resurfacing Project, Contract 1, and declaring an emergency.
Councilman Snead.
Thank you, President Eisnick. So this is the 2023 Street Resurfacing Project. I posted this out on social media asking for any questions. I did not receive any. There is an emergency with this ordinance due to trying to get our bids put out first. So if there's no objections, I'd like to open it up to council for any comments, questions. And if there are no objections, I'll bring it forward for the vote.
Councilman Biola.
Yeah, just briefly, Mr. Snead, do you know, so they'll be completing the 22 list first and then trying to complete the entire 23 this year also?
Correct. So May 1st is when they predict the hot mix plants to reopen, and as soon as they reopen, we were told that Massillon should be one of the first in line, if not the first in line, to get the 2022 street list redone. If we get these up and been accepted in time, then we should hopefully see this by August, the 2023 street list go into effect.
Okay, that's all, thank you.
No problem.
Anyone else? Councilman Snead.
Thank you. I'd like to waive the rule requiring 3 readings and make a motion that we bring ordinance number 31-2023 forward for a vote.
Second by Councilman Creamer. Roll call for suspension.
Lombardi,
Yes.
Slits,
Yes.
Snead,
Yes.
Viola,
Yes.
Creamer,
Yes.
Gray,
Yes.
Howard Smith,
Yes.
and Herman Kane.
Yes.
8 yes for suspension.
And for passage.
Slits,
Yes.
Snead,
Yes.
Viola,
Yes.
Creamer,
Yes.
Gray,
Yes.
Howard Smith,
Yes.
Herman Kane,
Yes.
and Lombardi.
Yes.
8 yes for passage.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Ordinance number 31, 2023 is passed. Ordinance number 32, 2023.
An ordinance authorizing the Director of Public Service and Safety of the City of Massillon, Ohio, to advertise for and receive sealed bids and to enter into a contract with the lowest and best bidder upon the approval of the Board of Control for the 2023 Catch Basin Replacement Project 1 and declaring an emergency.
Councilman Snead.
Thank you, President. I just think this kind of goes hand in hand with the road replacement list, 2023 road replacement list. This is for the Catch Basin Replacement Project 1. Also, to get bidding out as soon as possible. This is an emergency language. At this time, does anybody on council have any questions or comments?
Councilman Creamer.
Yeah, I have a question from administration. I know at one point, they really rated all the catch basins throughout the city, and they were starting to replace those that were rated like a score of 4, I think like the worst catch basins. I'd like to know, did we complete all those 4 ratings, and are we now working on like the 3 ratings? Like where are we at with those catch basins that need replaced throughout the city?
Thank you, Mr. Lester.
Good evening, Council. We did complete the rating of all the catch basins, and as you recall, in the past 2 years, we had 2 contracts when we came forward, and Council approved those. This year, we do only need 1 contract, and that's going to include about 40 catch basins on there. So that should get us caught up to the point of what's on our rating schedule. But in saying that, we do still have some catch basins that deteriorate from, one winter to the next. We do also have some catch basins that, for whatever reason, could get damaged or so forth. But engineering does keep a part of their budget in there for any of those emergency repairs that are out there. But at this particular time, we do still inspect them. You probably see a lot of our street department workers out there cleaning the catch basins. It's something they do on a regular basis, weather permitting. And so we are keeping them clean to keep maintaining them to get them to last as long as they can. But I believe it was around 4,100 catch basins. So yes, this contract we have on there will complete about 40 of them to where we have the needs. Also keep in mind that some of the catch basins will be replaced with the street resurfacing project. So we always keep that in mind when we put our list together for these catch basins, because there will be catch basins that will be replaced in the contract for the resurfacing that was just passed.
Councilman Kramer.
Just to clarify, just to make sure I have this correct. So the worst catch basins in the city, we rated those. So are we fit with these 40 catch basins? Are we completing those worst catch basins from the city?
We're completing all of them that were rated with the worst of the 4, and all of them completely. Out of all of them we have, with the exception of any that can deteriorate between now and then. So next year we may have to come back to council with another contract, but maybe it'll only have 25 or 30 on it. But we are pretty, if your question is, we are pretty well caught up with all of the worst catch basins in the city. Yes, that we are, with the exception of some that do deteriorate and are coming back around. So let's say some of the worst ones that we did a few years ago, they could be coming back and getting worse again, and we would have to replace those.
But we changed the materials we were using
Yes.
from years back, right?
That's right.
We were using better material, a different structure.
Yes.
So it would maintain for a longer period of time, correct?
That's correct. And that's why we do go out to contract those out.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Anyone else? Councilman Snead.
Thank you, President Eisnick. I'd like to waive the rule requiring 3 readings and make a motion for ordinance number 32-2023 to bring forward for a vote.
Second by Councilman Viola. Roll call for suspension.
Sneed,
Yes.
Violand,
Yes.
Creamer,
Yes.
Gray,
Yes.
Howard Smith,
Yes.
Kern King,
Yes.
Lombardi,
Yes.
and Sluse.
Yes.
8 yes for suspension.
And for passage.
Violand,
Yes.
Creamer,
Yes.
Gray,
Yes.
Harvick Smith,
Yes.
Kern King,
Yes.
Lombardi,
Yes.
Sluse,
Yes.
and Sneed.
Yes.
8 yes for passage.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Ordinance number 32, 2023 has passed. Ordinance number 33, 2023.
An ordinance making certain appropriations from the unappropriated balance of the 1242 Municipal Court APR Alternative Dispute Resolution Fund for the year ending December 31st, 2023, and declaring an emergency.
Councilman Gray.
Thank you, Madam President. Yeah, we discussed this in our last meeting. This is we're passed through for the municipal court funds. Any questions or comments from council? Seeing none, I'd like to move that we waive the rules requiring 3 readings and bring ordinance number 33-2023 forward for a vote.
Second by Councilman Lombardi. Roll call for suspension.
Creamer,
Yes.
Gray,
Yes.
Harvick Smith,
Yes.
Kern King,
Yes.
Lombardi,
Yes.
Sluse,
Yes.
Sneed,
Yes.
and Viola.
Yes.
8 yes for suspension.
And for passage.
Gray,
Yes.
Harvick Smith,
Yes.
Kern King,
Yes.
Lombardi,
Yes.
Sluse,
Yes.
Sneed,
Yes.
Viola,
Yes.
and Creamer.
Yes.
8 yes for passage.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Ordinance number 33, 2023 is passed. Ordinance number 34, 2023.
An ordinance making certain appropriations from the unappropriated balance of the 1, 2, 3, 4 Parks and Recreation Legends Fund for the year ending December 31st, 2023, and declaring an emergency.
Councilman Gray.
Thank you, Madam President. Mr. Pedro was here at our last work session to discuss this ordinance and the need for some repairs and so forth at the Legends. Any questions or comments from council? Seeing none, I'd like to make a motion that we waive the rule requiring 3 readings of ordinance number 34, 2023, and bring it forward for a vote.
Second by Councilman Lombardi. Roll call for suspension.
Harvick Smith,
Yes.
Kern King,
Yes.
Lombardi,
Yes.
Sluse,
Yes.
Sneed,
Yes.
Viola,
Yes.
Creamer,
Yes.
and Gray.
Yes.
8 yes for suspension.
And for passage.
Kern King,
Yes.
Lombardi,
Yes.
Sluse,
Yes.
Sneed,
Yes.
Viola,
Yes.
Creamer,
Yes.
Gray,
Yes.
and Harvick Smith.
Yes.
8 yes for passage.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Ordinance number 34, 2023 is passed. Ordinance number 35, 2023.
An ordinance authorizing the Director of Law of the City of Massillon, Ohio, to enter into a 1-year agreement with the Village of Brewster, Ohio, for the purpose of providing prosecutorial services and declaring an emergency.
Councilman Gray.
Thank you, Madam President. Again, we discussed this in our last meeting. Law Director Richard was here to discuss these contracts, which we do each year with other cities and villages nearby, in this case Brewster. Any questions or comments? Council? Seeing none, I'd like to make a motion that we waive the reading of the 3 readings of this ordinance and bring it forward for a vote.
Second by Councilman Lombardi. Roll call for suspension.
Lombardi,
Yes.
Sluse,
Yes.
Sneed,
Yes.
Viola,
Yes.
Creamer,
Yes.
Gray,
Yes.
Harvick Smith,
Yes.
and Kern King.
Yes.
8 yes for suspension.
And for passage.
Sluse,
Yes.
Sneed,
Yes.
Viola,
Yes.
Creamer,
Yes.
Gray,
Yes.
Harvick Smith,
Yes.
Kern King,
Yes.
and Lombardi.
Yes.
8 yes for passage.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Ordinance number 35, 2023 is passed. Ordinance number 36, 2023.
An ordinance authorizing the Director of Law of the City of Massillon, Ohio, to enter into a 1-year agreement with the City of Canal Fulton, Ohio, for the purpose of providing prosecutorial services and declaring an emergency.
Councilman Gray.
Thank you, Madam President. Similar to the piece that we just passed, this is a agreement with the City of Canal Fulton for prosecutorial services. Any questions, concerns from council? Seeing none, I'd like to make a motion that we waive the 3 readings of the ordinance number 36, 2023, and bring it forward for a vote.
Second by Councilman Lombardi. Roll call for suspension.
Snead,
Yes.
Viola,
Yes.
Kramer,
Yes.
Gray,
Yes.
Howard Smith,
Yes.
Hurricane,
Yes.
Lombardi,
Yes.
and Sluse.
Yes.
8 yes for suspension.
And for passage.
Viola,
Yes.
Kramer,
Yes.
Gray,
Yes.
Howard Smith,
Yes.
Hurricane,
Yes.
Lombardi,
Yes.
Sluse,
Yes.
and Snead.
Yes.
8 yes for passage.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Ordinance number 36, 2023 is passed. Under unfinished business, does anyone have anything? I do. At the end of last year, we had talked about redoing our mic system. We had Bill Dewalt come in and talk to us. And over the next month, somebody will be coming in and going over it, and we will get this done. Are there any petitions in general communications?
Yes, we have a transfer of a liquor license from Roar's Wine Room LLC, doing business as Roar's Wine Room, first floor and basement, located at 1353 Brookwood Drive, Suite B, Suffield Township, Matador, Ohio, 44260, to Roar's Wine Room LLC, doing business as Roar's Wine Room, located at 28 Charles Avenue Southeast, Massillon, Ohio, 44646. Permit classes are A2, B2A, and S1, and it's located in Ward 2.
Councilman, do you want to give information on this?
I did, thank you, Madam President.
Thank you. Are there any bills, accounts, and claims?
Yes, oh, I'm sorry, no, we do not.
Reports from city officials.
Yes, we have the auditor's report for March of 2023.
Councilman Gray.
Thank you, Madam President. I'd like to move that we accept the auditor's report.
Second by Councilman Lombardi. Roll call.
Creamer,
Yes.
Gray,
Yes.
Howard Smith,
Yes.
Hurricane,
Yes.
Lombardi,
Yes.
Sluse,
Yes.
Snead,
Yes.
and Viola.
Yes.
8 yes to accept the auditor's report.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. The auditor's report has been accepted. Are there any reports of committees? Our next work session is next Monday, April 10th, 2023 at 6:30. Request of resolutions, request of council members. Does anyone have anything? Call of the calendar. None. Third reading ordinances and resolutions. Ordinance number 15, 2023.
An ordinance authorizing the mayor of the city of Massillon, Ohio, to enter into an agreement with Carolyn Worthman to provide an economic development inducement grant for startup costs, including build-out, equipment, etc., for Little Sprouts West, located at 2112 Lincoln Way West, Massillon, Ohio, and declaring an emergency.
Councilman Hurricane.
Thank you, Madam President. This is an economic development inducement grant in the amount of $5,000. Ms. Worthing was here several weeks ago, first work session, to talk about her expansion for Little Sprouts West. Are there any questions from any members of council this evening? Madam President, since this is that third read, I make a motion that we bring ordinance number 15-2023 forward for a vote.
Second by Councilman Viola. Roll call.
Gray,
Yes.
Howard Smith,
Yes.
Hurricane,
Yes.
Lombardi,
Yes.
Sluse,
Yes.
Snead,
Yes.
Viola,
Yes.
and Kramer.
Yes.
8 yes for passage.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Ordinance number 15, 2023 is passed. Ordinance number 17, 2023.
An ordinance amending section 2D occupation list of class titles of ordinance number 127-1997 to add 3 new positions within the 705-730 Health Department and declaring an emergency.
Councilman Gray.
Thank you, Madam President. I passed an amended copy of this ordinance out to council just prior to the meeting, something that Assistant Law Director Mack has altered for us. Specifically, Section 3, starting in 2024 and continuing each year thereafter, the Health Commissioner shall appear at the first regular meeting of City Council and shall advise the council as to, 1, the status of each position within the health department funded by grant or other outside funding sources, 2, the amount remaining on any such grant or outside funding sources, and 3, whether such grant or outside funding sources will be renewed so as to enable continued funding of said positions. Any questions or comments from council?
Councilwoman Kramer?
I just have one question. So as it states, starting in 2024, the health commissioner is going to appear in front of us at the first regular meeting. We discussed budgets prior to that. So will that affect, how will that affect the budget piece?
It'd be my understanding, we don't pass the budget till the next year, right? So we would still have opportunity to review or have the health commissioner explain the funding of the grant positions.
Councilwoman Kramer?
I believe we would pass, we would put the budget up for a vote at the end of that, I would say, starting in 2024. So at the end of 2023, we would have the budget proposal in front of us. So at the end of this grant period is where we're concerned about. Where is the funding going to come from? So that's my concern at that time. I would like to know during the budget process if funding money is going to be placed in salary positions in the health department and where that money is coming from, would be my question.
I'd like to call Mr. Mack to the mic and you can explain the reasoning for the timing.
Thank you, Mr. Mack.
Thank you, Madam President, Chairman Gregg, Councilwoman Kramer. I think in discussions with chairpersons and Law Director Richard, the objective is to get you guys information so that these positions aren't just assumed within the health department, and then it's these grant funded positions become indistinguishable from normal positions. We thought, and of course we can make whatever changes you would like. The question you raised with the temporary budgets, those are typically put in place as you identified prior to the expiration of the year so we can make payroll. Permanent budget's not passed until a month or two after that. There was two competing considerations as to when we make that in-person annual presentation, give you this information you need, whether we do it prior to the end of the year or before at the next regular meeting. I don't have the policies for you, not for me, but we would ran into the problem of if we do it before the end of the year, then there could be council members whose terms expired who wouldn't then have that information and then ultimately would be a part of the budgeting process. And so to make sure that the body that's actually going to be putting in place the permanent budget has that information, that's why it was the first regular meeting of the year and not prior to the temporary budgets being put in place. Does that make sense? I mean, the reason makes sense, not the policy of it. The policy is completely bonkers or whatever, I'm not sure.
Well, if that council approves that budget at the end of the year, then we approve those funds to cover positions if the grant expired at the end of that year. So it's the money, so we've already approved that, and then the next council group would then, aren't their hands tied then? Because the money's already been allocated for the salaries in the health department?
The temporary budget would be approved, but that only gets us through the first quarter effectively. So when the temporary budget's passed by council in December usually, that doesn't cover the entire year. You cannot use that budget, your temporary budget, to fund city operations. You have to pass your permanent budget. And then that cannot be passed until you have your final certification from the auditor, and that doesn't come until after the first. There's other provisions in the revised code that speak to when other department heads are to provide their updates, since by most of the time, and so we said, no, written reports aren't going to be enough, it's the person has to come here and talk to you. The mayor's report is to be at the first regular council meeting of the year. There was some consistency there, and so it seemed to make it easier, because otherwise you will have a situation in even number of years where there could be new members on the body that don't get the benefit of that briefing.
Thank you.
So it's for the benefit of the newly seated council each term.
Yes, that's correct.
Thank you.
Councilman Lombardi?
Thank you, President Eising. I think I tend to agree with Councilmember Kramer. We need to know this before we put that budget into effect, because once that budget's certified by the auditor the next year, it's almost impossible to change it. So we need to know these things prior to that budget being proposed and submitted to the auditor, and voted on by the, you know, maybe it's a council going out or not, but at least the council coming in knows that those funds were available before we budgeted for them and passed it.
Yeah, I don't disagree with that. I mean, that's in terms of picking policies, I mean, that could be sound. And one way to then accomplish that, just don't mean to, you know, create legislation here on the podium, but we could have the amendment read in terms of the date, you know, no later than November 30th of any particular year, that this briefing is to be provided to you, whenever you guys need that information.
Anyone else? Councilman Gray?
I'm just thinking, keep in mind, we're not voting on the funding for these positions. The funding is grant funded, right? We're just looking for information. So it's not like we need to have that before we vote on the budget per se, because the funding's already there provided by grants. Am I wrong?
No, you're absolutely correct for these positions specifically, in any position that would be subject to this, yes.
Right.
So
So we're just asking for the health commissioner to come forward and present the fact that the funding is continuing, you know, is it either continuing or not continuing to fund those positions.
that's the intention, and that's the way you're going. Yeah.
Councilman Kramer?
I believe when the conversation started, the concern was once the grant is expired. I believe it was communicated that these positions, there was going to be funds in the health department to carry these positions on. They weren't temporary, so that's when we started questioning, you know, should we take a look at this a little bit deeper and have some type of wording in here to review this information once the funding from the grant is, you know, gone. Like where we go forward with these three positions was what my interpretation of why this all, this conversation started.
Councilman Lombardi?
I still have to hold to my position on that and agree with Councilman Creamer. We need to know this information while we're assessing the budget for the next year. We can't wait until after the first of the year and the budget's been passed at the end of the year. We can't wait until the first of the year to find out the health commissioner comes up and says, oh, no more funds, but we've already budgeted for it now. And there's a new council now that has to deal with it. Okay, potential new council that has to deal with it. I believe this should be brought up, and I believe November 30th is a little late. I think it should be back on October 30th. And this should be made, you know, a consideration of the administration, health department, the council, before we get a budget put together. And then once that budget's passed, when it goes on to a possibly new council session, they at least know that we have either funded those by the grant, continuing the grant, or that those positions need to be eliminated. And I believe that would be better, that would better serve both councils, actually.
Whatever the body's preference is, I can do that, and then there's an intellectual basis for that, because prior to the beginning of the fourth quarter, you need this information. So we could make the date annually no later than, it would be October 1st of every year. That whatever the next regular meeting is after October 1st of the calendar year. I can certainly do that.
Councilman Yolland?
Thank you, Madam President. Am I incorrect in my assumption that we already know when this grant is going to end? Technically, correct? Don't we already have a date?
So, yes, and I've seen the grant myself. It's through 2027. Now, there is a possibility then that the grant could be renewed. There could be alternative funding sources that could be used by the health department to fund these positions. I think what this would do, if this council would put this in place, was give you that information. So you're not learning about, as Councilman Wardy stated, that actually though the grant has expired, there is no additional substitute funding sources to be in here, and we need an additional appropriation from the general fund of however much it costs to cover 3 employees.
So I guess my question then is, will we need that information before 2026?
No, I don't think you would.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Anyone else? Councilman Ray?
So the intent was to make this going forward more of a generic type of situation, so we don't have to look at each one individually every time, right? So we've got something in place that requires the commissioner to come in front of council to explain these positions. The timing can be whatever it is, but clearly we've got some additional discussion on this item. It's at third reading now. The original legislation is at third reading. I think what I'm going to do is propose that we amend. Should we table or should we put it at first reading? Okay, so I think other members of Rules and Courts.
Excuse me, Councilman Gregg, if you amend it, that takes it back to first reading.
I know.
Okay. If you table it, are you going to table it indefinitely or to a specific date?
Let's table it to our next meeting. That will give us a work session between now and then to work out through whatever other questions we have, or to consider additional amendment to this one. So let's table this until next regular meeting.
17.
Yes.
Second. Okay. Roll call to table ordinance number 17, 2023 until November 17, 2023. April. What did I say? Oh, dear God. April.
I missed the whole efficiency.
Seriously.
Okay, where are we? Howard Smith,
Yes.
Hurricane,
Yes.
Lombardi,
Yes.
Slutes,
Yes.
Snead,
Yes.
Yolland,
Yes.
Kramer,
Yes.
and Gray.
Yes.
8 yes to table ordinance number 17, 2023 until April 17, 2023.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Ordinance number 17, 2023 has been tabled. Second reading ordinances and resolutions. Ordinance number 22, 2023.
An ordinance of authorizing the mayor of the city of Massillon, Ohio to enter into an agreement with Allison Mary to provide an economic development inducement grant to fund startup costs including build-out, equipment, etc. for Kathleen and Gun Copper located at 155 Lincoln Way West, Suite A-096, Massillon, Ohio, and declaring an emergency.
Councilman Hurricane.
Thank you, Madam President. Second reading.
Thank you. Ordinance number 2022 has received second, 23 has received second reading. Word number 17 on the agenda, anyone from the audience can come forward and speak on any topic that did not appear on tonight's agenda. If you wish to do so, please state your name, address, topic you wish to discuss, and please limit your comments to 4 minutes or less.
Good evening, my name is Lisa Paramore, address 8641 Scenic Ridge, Clinton, Ohio. Madam President and council members, good evening. As I said, my name is Lisa Paramore, and I am the Communications Manager for the Stark County Board of Developmental Disabilities, and I am also the parent of a young adult with disabilities. It is an honor to speak with you this evening. The Stark County Board of Developmental Disabilities supports over 4,100 children and adults that live in our community. Our mission is to support choices and create opportunities for those children and adults and their families. Our vision is that people with disabilities will be accepted and fully included in our communities. However, there are still barriers that keep people from disabilities, sometimes because of how they look, how they walk, talk, or how they learn. At Stark DD, we address these challenges every day. On May 2nd, we have a ballot, a levy that's on the ballot that is needed for our continued work. It is issue 21. It is a 5-year renewal levy that is not a new tax. Actually, if issue 21 is approved, our taxpayers will pay less. Presently, a homeowner of a $100,000 property pays $98 per year. If our levy is approved, the homeowner will pay only $68 per year. And the reason this is possible is because of the tremendous economic growth that's happened in our community over the last 10 years. Each year, we work with over 700 families that have an infant with a disability or a delay. Each year, we provide preschool and school-age educational services to 170 children with complex needs, in addition to working with 500 children in our local school districts. Each year, we fund the services and supports so that 1,800 people can live, work, and play in the Stark County community. Once we provide this funding is for life. So there are people that we may fund for 50, 60, or 70 years. We want you to know us, and we want you to know what we do. We also want you to know we are a trusted partner for thousands of families that rely on us. Stark DD provides vital services and high-quality supports to a steadily increasing number of people with developmental disabilities throughout their lifetime. We are serving 30% or 756 more people than we did a decade ago, all with the same amount of money. Ultimately, we want each person, like my son, his friends, and your neighbors with a disability to have a good life. And we are working with you in the city of Massillon and other communities in Stark County to make this happen. Please help us by voting yes for issue 21. Thank you.
Thank you, Lisa. If you could sign the paper here. Anyone else?
Brooke Longheyer, 206 Hayes Avenue, Massillon, Ohio. Topic is going to be all over the place. Number one, I've been here the last couple weeks about these health department jobs, and I don't think the question has still been answered on a lot of these 3 new jobs or 3 continuing jobs. But couldn't it just be written that the jobs are contingent on the grants sticking around? Again, I'll ask what work had been done on 20 Lincoln Way East since the 2009 fire. I've still not had an answer for that. I still want to know who decided that it was ever going to be anything but a demolition. From what I've understood, the owner that owned it at the time was told they were not allowed to demo it. I was asking, I'll leave his name out, the owner of the properties that were torn down's workers last week, if they knew who was responsible to clean up the mess. There is still part of 20 Lincoln Way East standing that was not demolished after the fire and was not demolished in this demolition. There's an electric box out there. There's bricks all over. That's not my property. My property ends at my brick. So are my customers just thinking I'm a messy, nasty ninny who just leaves her property like this? Is there a plan for forcing him to clean it up? Is there a plan for taking down that building? When I asked the workers, they informed me that they had just spent $5,000 right before the demolition and had plans approved to fix the building at 14. So that's confusing. We heard last week that people are going to intend to rent it out and questions of how can they do that. And I've had plenty of people come into my store and complain about it and ask about it. I'll tell you now, your building inspectors took the sign off that said mandated vacated. That's how somebody can go in there. The owner of these properties has done what you have allowed him to do for the last, I'm 42, since I've been alive, 42 years. He's going to continue to do what you allowed him to do, which means leave properties dilapidated, rent out places that shouldn't be rented out. I mean, there's another building the owner told me he moved out of because the whole floor floods every time, and it's for rent again too. So if your building inspectors are not going to clear these, no one's allowed in there, how can we get mad at him for letting somebody go in there? And in that discussion as well, it has not been discussed, is he getting a lien? I know it was a big money project. We got a big grant for it. I still have holes in my building that I can see light through. I still have steel in my building. What portion of this grant is going to cover an owner's expense instead of making him pay for everything like you're trying to do to another owner and force him to sell these buildings? If we sell them to another person that's, oh, this businessman wants to buy all 30 of his buildings, so we're just going to have a new slumlord? Do we really think somebody's going to come in, buy all these properties, and find the money to fix them all or tear them all down? I don't know.
Thank you, Brooke.
You're welcome.
If someone from administration has any questions or any answers for Brooke's questions, if you could talk to him possibly after the meeting, that would be appreciated. Anyone else wishing to speak?
Yeah.
Is this on a topic that did not appear on tonight's agenda?
Yes.
Okay.
Forgive me.
Your name and address?
I'm sorry.
Name and address?
I'm called Joseph Allen Davis, and right now I live in Canton, North Canton.
Address?
4285 Everhard Road. I just had a question and maybe a reference. I would like to know what gives the city of Massillon or the...
Joseph, could you speak a little closer to the
Forgive me.
mic? Thank you.
I would like to know what gives the city of Massillon or the Massillon Municipal Court to pass orders on land that is not owned by or ceded to the city of or the state or the United States.
I'm not certain I understand what you're asking. I'm sorry.
Forgive me. You have judges at the municipal court who cannot explain the same thing. I figure those were experts, but here, because you guys are hiring them, so if you would need reference, I would say look at ORC or Ohio Revised Code 1.59G, which gives the definition of the state. I would say look at Article 1, Section 8, Clause 17 of the Constitution for the United States of America. And I would say look at case number 2022 CBG 02623 at the Massillon Municipal Court for any more reference dealing with the question. That's all I have.
Thank you. If you'd sign the paper, with your name and address, thank you. Anyone else?
Hi, Robin Bloom, 846 Walden Avenue Southeast. This is in regards to the downtown buildings and a lot of the homes that we're losing. All three of them came down on Lincoln Way. There was no salvage of any of the materials out of there. And for me, I think it should be criminal. It's, you know, there should be programs through the city where houses are dismantled as much as can be salvaged, recycled, reused, and repurposed should. We owe it to our history and we owe it to our environment.
Thank you. Anyone else?
George Cleveland, 222 Lake Avenue, Massillon. I'm a taxpayer. I wanted to weigh in on the buildings downtown as well, because you had Frank here last week. And one question you didn't ask him was, how long does it take to look at a building and give your recommendations on what needs to be done? Because for the life of me, this is just something that's taken too long. like, I like what Mr. Hurricane said a while back, is maybe we should hire some people to speed this process up, because a year's time to sit on something is unreasonable, considering we already know the damage, I mean, the situation these buildings are in. So that's what I wanted to advocate, is this is taking too long. I mean, we need to speed this up. You know, nobody ever asked Frank, how long does it take to inspect a building? You know, I mean, and the buildings that need inspected the most are the ones downtown, because they're the facade of the city, and they're the ones falling down. So I'd just like the city council to try to speed things up on that, on these buildings, and a lot, like I said, the people coming up here want answers about the two buildings that the city paid $257,000, and that $200 in grant money was $457,000. We never really got any answers about what's going on, or is it? And then moving forward, maybe the city ought to invest in some of these properties. I mean, they did buy a hospital, so that didn't work out too good though. So that being said, it's a great opportunity for the city to invest in the city, because the mayor said we got $5 million in the rainy day fund. So let's, you know, I don't understand why this city just drags their feet on so many things. I mean, today things moved pretty good. A lot of things got moved forward with one reading. You know, that's good. But you know, moving down the road here, I'd like to see the city get more energetic and get things done, you know. And also some of the answers that the people in this body want, you know, with those two buildings that were torn down, and you know, we don't even know if that guy ended up buying that property, the Altman guy. Does anybody know? I mean, at one point he did want to buy it, so I don't know if he backed out of that or not. So, to revitalize the city, but that'll be all I wanted to say.
Thank you.
All right, thanks.
Anyone else? Seeing none, Councilman Lombardi.
Thank you, Person Dyson. I motion we adjourn.
Second by Councilman Craig, roll call.
Kane,
Yes.
Lombardi,
Yes.
Sluse,
Yes.
Lee,
Yes.
Viola, yes, Kramer,
Yes.
Gregg,
Yes.
and Harvard Smith.
Yes.
8 yes, to adjourn.
Meeting adjourned.